well, let's move on to Theater 3. Redline from 2010, starring Takuya Kimura, Yu Aoi, and Tatsuya Gashuin. I'm trying here. And directed by Takeshi Koike. Man, I am probably like... Oh, yeah, Eamon says it does hold up, as does Redline.
Okay,
So,
well, there we
Mononoke's
go.
an A.
Mononoke is an A, as it should be.
Yep. All right, well,
Um,
hit the trailer. Let's not talk
yeah,
about Redline until we've absorbed this trailer here.
crack cocaine of a trailer.
Yeah.
From the director of
This
Animatrix World Record and the studio that brought you Summer Wars, Ninja Scroll, and Paprika, comes one of the most exciting and visually inventive films in years, Redline!
visual garbage.
It wasn't the best animation, but at certain times it was. It was inconsistent, I would say.
It was so inconsistent. It was so
Yeah.
inconsistent.
It
This
looked like
film,
very different artists doing it at different times. They're different
well,
animation studios, maybe. Maybe they had too many different studios working
they
on it.
well
Who knows?
they had Madhouse in Japan, and they also had a studio in America, and they were going back and forth between those two studios to make this film.
This one I did watch a dub, like I said, and it still had English subtitles.
Yeah, I ended up watching. Like I said, I tried to watch the sub and I couldn't do it. The subtitles mixed with the art was too distracting to like try and read and keep like any sort of resemblance of what the fuck was going on in this crackhead movie. And I picked this because I wanted to see this.
Tadanobu Asano.
What do you see? Beyond the line.
Redline.
Ugh. Okay.
Red Line.
The reason I picked this film was when it first came out, there was a bunch of hype about it, and specifically, I remember you probably don't know this YouTuber named Moist Critical. Goes by his name's Charlie. Yeah, that's fair. Me saying Moist Critical, anybody watching this probably knows who he is. He highly recommended this film when it came out. He was like, "Oh, this film's like one of the best animated films I've animated." Like he's a big anime fan, and he thinks it's like one of the better anime films he's ever watched. He thinks the animation is top notch and it breaks ground and all this stuff. I sat down and I was like, okay,
it's detailed at times. Like
it's
like
it's not
it's fast.
not
Like
even
there's like
detailed. It's like here's my problem with
sometimes
this
like
film.
you look into the crowd and there's like 40 characters and they all have
The
fair bit more
very
detail in them than Totoro does, and that's a main character.
okay,
Like, it's
okay.
all in what
Like
you compare it to.
the very few scenes where they're like wide and they were showing like crowds of people, those were detailed, but they were cutting a lot of corners. There was a good portion
yeah.
of this movie where the background was just white paper and a couple of black lines that were supposed to be mountains. And then another portion of this another half of this movie, the background was just black. And then they would have like black ships on black backgrounds. There's no visual contrast. So it was really hard to determine what is happening in this cacophony of cocaine crackheadness. Like they wanted to like animate it like the crazy scenes with a fisheye lens, but if the fisheye lens was cranked up to 300 and you could go macro with it and smear everything, and it was just so much. Like when you talk about anime films being like outlandish and their faces are weird and there's crazy animation, you don't know what this is what you're talking about. This movie is like typically everything that you've ever complained about animes. Every second of this film, I'm like, okay, I get what Davin's talking about. I understand what Davin means when it comes to animes.
Extra.
This is too much. This is too much, and there was no thorough line. It was just so like, here's a crazy scene, here's a crazy scene, here's a little bit of a weird scene, here's more crazy
You
scene.
just interrupted for 1 sec to speak on that
much.
point. So it didn't bother me as much in this movie because what I find with all the extraness in most animes that I watch is that it's distracting from what would otherwise be an interesting story. Whereas this movie has no story, so there was nothing to distract from. So it actually needs the constant distraction to even be entertaining. That's the entertainment value of this movie, is the fact that it never stops moving. Um, like here's what's funny about this movie though. So they have these different races, right? There's like the yellow line race, and then the blue line race, and if you win, you're trying to get to the red line race. It's like the
Yeah.
big race.
Yeah.
So the very first opening scene, which before the even credits even come down, it's probably like 10-minute scene. Um, is the yellow line race.
Yeah.
And that race I actually found interesting because they're introducing all the different characters, and some of them are quirky and funny. Like there's Psycho Man, and like there's like
Lynchman and all
yeah,
these like different characters. Well, okay, here's the thing.
yeah,
This film is basically Death Race 2000.
yeah.
If it was mashed into an anime and had the art style of Beautiful Joe. Do you remember that game? Beautiful Joe back on
Beautiful Joe
GameCube?
for Sega
Yeah.
Genesis.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, not was it second? No, no, no.
Wasn't
It
Beautiful
was a
Joe on
GameCube.
Sega Genesis?
No, no, it was a GameCube game. Beautiful
Oh,
Joe
I'm
was
thinking
a
something else.
yeah. You might. I think you might be thinking of that comic book game, where you could like
Oh.
jump through panels and stuff. That game was amazing. Anyway, no, Beautiful Joe, because there was specifically the scene with the princess, and I was like, oh, this is the same art style as Beautiful Joe, which I haven't seen in years, and I actually had to go and see if like the guy that made Beautiful Joe had any correlation to this film. None whatsoever. I was like, all right, that's fine. But I couldn't stop seeing that art style. I found the black lines were like, I don't know, I felt they were too thick or too heavy. Like it was just a lot of the art was flat. It was a lot of flat colored art. Where we go from Miyazaki, who has details and leaves and grass and like the most eccentric
It
and
does
beautiful
look a little
background
more
paintings.
amateurish.
It was
Than what-
so flat and empty feeling compared to like the Ghibli stuff, which is just gorgeous in every scene. And then you just like go through this and you're just like, what am I looking at? What is this? Is that supposed to
But
be
again,
a
I
background?
found these visuals still more interesting than Totoro. Totoro was a little too boring in its visuals for me.
Yes, like
Whereas this one, like I found some of the alien designs interesting. There were a lot of weird aliens, and some of them were kind of unique designs. Um,
yeah. Well,
even
let's
some of them
let's
were
let's
pretty
take a
basic,
look, shall
like
we?
just like dog people and stuff.
Yeah, a lot of dog lines. But yeah, like there's they would have these shots like these which are like really detailed, and then they would cut corners with like other shots or like animations of people talking and stuff like that, you know. So yeah, we're on the planet Dorothy. A racer named JP participates in the yellow car race, which serves as the final elimination race for the galaxy's most popular event, the Redline.
Well,
Quickly,
this is my
we're
favorite
introduced
scene already.
introduced to Davin's favorite scene that holds up.
See, the first 20 minutes of this movie was fun.
There's only 50 clicks left to go at Planet Dorothy's yellow line.
Oh, you're not getting any of the.
To stay ahead this long.
Yeah, I don't know what happened to my audio here.
Okay, well, there's no audio there, so.
She's got her hover jet, the Crab Sonashi, rocketing toward the finish line. Right behind her in second place is the winner
Son of a
the
bitch.
very first red line.
Yeah, the audio didn't work, but yeah. So
Yeah,
that's
the
basically
audio-
The dude's
the
just like,
kids-
get your camera ready, get your camera ready. He's like, I got it. He's like, get the cap off, get the lens cap off. He's like, I got it. And they don't get it off in time because the cars go whipping by, and there's just like this delay where it's just like everyone in the crowd is just like stunned for a couple seconds, and then they all start cheering. Oh, that was a fun gag, fun little
Yeah.
delay. But like,
Yeah,
so
so-
this yellow race interest me, and then by the time this movie gets to the red line race, I didn't care. I didn't care who won. I didn't care who was in it. I just didn't care about the red line race at all. It's like this movie was not effective in that regard.
No, I didn't care about this movie until literally the last like 15 seconds of the red line race when they're getting to the finish line. Then I was kind of like invested. It took me that long to
It
get
wasn't, but I
invested in
guessed
this
what
film.
was going to happen. I'm like, oh, now I get his hair.
Yeah, well, yeah, like the
Saw that
fucking
coming.
pompadour. It's just like,
Yeah,
okay,
he's gonna
that's
win
just
by
ridiculous.
pomp, and he did win by pomp.
So yeah, JP's alien mechanic Frisbee has secretly fixed the race with a mafia boss intending for JP to come in second place. However, JP defies the plan and tries to win the race. In response, Frisbee remotely detonates an explosive hidden inside under JP's car, causing him to lose control and making Sonoshi, Cherry Boy Hunter, McLaren the winner of the Yellow Line race. After the race, JP recovers in a hospital where Frisbee informs him that he is no longer in debt with his bondsman. JP initially refuses the money, but it's soon surrounded by reporters who inform him that he has been chosen by
This is the only
popular
element
man.
of a story in this movie is the the plight of a character who has been cheating and maybe doesn't want to cheat anymore, but then you're stuck. And how do you stop cheating? He's then you have people coming after you, So it's like, but they don't really explore that much.
Yeah, no, they don't explore much storyline. It's just like they kind of bombard you with insane visual after insane visual to try and hide the fact they don't really have much of a story. Um, so yeah,
They got a pomp though. It's quite
yeah,
the
he's got
pomp at
quite
the
a
end.
pump. He's telling he's been informed that nobody wants to go to Robo World because the Robo World is gonna shoot and kill all the racers. JP's like, screw
They
it,
don't
I'm
want
coming
them
for
there,
you,
which is
Robo.
hilarious. Like the race is just like, can we have the race on your planet? The planet's like, no. They're like, well, we're gonna do it anyway.
Yeah, we're just gonna
Like,
have the race anyway,
it's like
which is just
what?
like
It's like,
wild.
who the hell runs this race? That's so insane.
Yeah, the upper echelon of the politics could have been explored a bit more, I feel.
Yeah,
Um,
like there are like interesting things about this world that could have been. You're right, like delved into and made a richer world and a more interesting one.
so yeah, the Redline organizers had to relocate the race to the planet Robo World, a militaristic planet whose president threatens to execute anyone associated with the Red Line if it appears over their planet. The racers prepare for the Red Line by camping on Europus or Europe. I don't. I felt like they
You're
were calling it Europass, but it's like pronounced EU with a backwards R and it's PSS anyway. But we're gonna call it Europass. A moon
just
occupied by refugees. JP tries to recruit Old Man Mole, an alien junk dealer, onto his team, but faces resistance due to Frisbee's presence and the use of a rare and uncontrollable hyper-powered engine. Eventually, Old Man Mole agrees to join JP. Old Man Mole agrees to join. JP also reunites with Sonoshi on the moon, where tensions rise when Trava, another racer, is attacked by a subordinate by Colonel Volton. The restaurant is then raided by Volton and his soldiers, who warn the racers about the military's opposition to Redline. Despite the
okay. Here's another
military's,
thing about this movie and why it just got worse for me. Because it's like eventually they pull back the curtain and you realize what kind of fellow maybe wrote this, where it does kind of start to feel like it's written by a very horny 14-year-old boy or perhaps a sexually repressed adult. Like, all the ladies are all, of course, very well endowed on their chests
mm,
and wearing skimpy clothes. Like, they're very basically just like objects.
yeah, absolutely, yeah, no,
So, like,
it's just like, yeah, it's exactly. This is a 14-year-old
it,
boy's
it,
wet
it,
dream of
it
a
just
film.
gets gross. It just gets a bit gross as it's going.
So yeah, despite the military threats, celebrations and bookmakers activities take place on Europass. Where this is where we get to my favorite scene of the whole film, which was really random. It's during when Sonoshi's sitting down watching TV and they're like doing
From the shiny
reels on the
Yeah,
players.
buddy.
got a taste for vengeance. It's Mickey and Totoro!
They can turn any road into a racing circuit. They've got charisma to spare. They're out for blood at Redline.
Gory Rider, you motherfucker!
Go rider, you motherfucker! Oh my god, what's happening? Anyway, so yeah, that was my favorite scene in the whole movie. Just that one clip of these two guys who actually they had a great scene later on in the film. They were probably one of my favorite characters. Yeah. So you get sort of these like character breakdowns throughout the episode. Yeah. Um, right. So, android police robots raid the festivities. Meanwhile, miners on Roboworld sabotage the military base's power station, and the race commission hires Earth native racing partners Lynchman and Johnny Boya to sabotage the orbital disintegration cannon, which the Secretary of Defense's plan to use against the Redline mothership. During the race, the princess from planet Supergrass makes the course on the military base. Unaware of the sabotage, the president realizes the racer's presence and orders his troops to attack as the racers approach Zone 7X. They encounter a secret biological weapon called Funky Boy, which activates as the racers and miners converge. This is where we get to Eamon's scene where Funky Boy is causing some chaos, and they call in the defense cannon. This is cool, but this is also the biggest fuck up of scale in the film for me. Like, that explosion is massive. These people are flying, and this asshole is able to hold on to the girl and survive.
Energy discharge complete. Recharge commencing.
Right? Like,
I can't believe this is happening.
the
Yeah,
power
it's
of
a
the
bump,
pump.
Murphy.
Okay, sure. But like he's like in the wake of a nuclear explosion, and he's just sitting there, gets covered in ash. He's like, okay, we're good. Meanwhile, like heavy vehicles are flying. Like the sense of scale in this film was non-existent. There
Oh, there's no
were
physics.
moments.
There's no
there,
physics.
like there was no physics. It was just complete chaos. Utter.
That's what they wanted. Like you said, it's a
chaos.
cocaine binge fest. It's like this movie just wanted that. It didn't want physics. Didn't
a
want to
fil-
be grounded. It was higher than that. You can't ground this when you're this high, Murphy. You can't be grounded.
So the explosion caused by Funky Boy destroys the base, and JP tries to write his overturned card. So Nishi, whose vehicle is damaged, agrees to ride with JP to the finish line. Meanwhile, Volton takes out Funky Boy at the cost of merging with another bioweapon, which I thought was a pretty wild scene. Yeah. This is basically where I'm out of fucking screenshots because I didn't get to finish these. Frisbee watches the race in the mob boss's hovercraft and is given the opportunity to detonate the explosion charge. However, he refuses, is attacked by mobsters, only to be saved by the old man mole. The mob boss and his lackeys are killed in the process, and the race nears the finish line. JP, longtime Redline favorite, Machine Head race neck and neck, propelled by rare steamlight boosters in a desperate finish. Old Man Mole detonates Frisbee's explosive, launching JP and Sonichi from the vehicle. Despite this, JP's boost is enough, and he wins the race by the length of his long ducktail pompadour. At the end of the track, amidst the ruins of Roboworld, JP and Sonichi float back to the ground, sharing a kiss and declaring their love for each other. The racers rest, and JP's victorious.
It didn't need, like, again, just another forced, weird romance.
God,
in
the
movie
ending
that
was
didn't
so
need one.
lame. It was the lamest. Like, oh, we're
Honestly,
floating and we're
Mononoke was
making
the
out.
same way, though. Like,
No, not even.
didn't- I
No. No.
yeah,
Mononoke.
as far as the ending, yes.
No, I disagree.
Yes,
okay,
I didn't need a
Mononoke had
romance between
ba-
the main character and Princess Mononoke.
I mean, if that's what you're
It's-
referring
it's-
to, but
it's-
I feel like Mononoke
It's
had a
the
more
same
rounded
problem
and
as Lorraine Bracco giving friggin' Sean Connery a kiss on the cheek at the end of Medicine Man. It's the same problem. Man, they was out of the same movie. Jesus.
Okay, one, I feel like the San Ashitaki love story thing was probably more warranted than the obvious.
because
The
she
two
chewed up his
humans in
meat?
the universe of Aliens are going to obviously get together because he's had a crush on her since they were kids. But even just like the final ending scene where they kiss and stuff is just ridiculous. And the ending of Redline is so like ridiculous and makes no sense. Mononoke actually made sense. The ending to that film makes sense, and everything that happens to it makes sense. The scale you can comprehend. Redline you can't comprehend. It is an incomprehensible movie. I can't believe
It's
I
just nothing to comprehend, really.
picked
It's
it
just a
and
race.
watched it. It is, but that's the thing. Like, there's a movie that we're gonna watch eventually, which is Ford versus Ferrari. All right, I've seen this film.
Not
I
looking
love
forward
that
to it.
film. That film is about racing. That film does a better way of telling a racer's story and telling the story of being a racer than Redline does. Redline's literally just wacky. It's just insane, wacky nonsense.
Pretty much. Yep. And it just got worse as it went. Like, it had me. I'm like, oh, this is Murphy's gonna be blown away when I tell him this is my favorite movie, and then by the end of it, it wasn't.
Yeah.
But
I wanted something out of this film, and the whole time I'm just like, this is a mess. This is ugly. This is stupid. There's no sense of scale. There's no sense of direction. There's no sense of any form of like a viable
it's just
reality.
no through line through the whole plot either. It's just like, okay, this
Yeah.
one race is over, and now there's gonna be another race.
Yeah, we're gonna have this small
Done.
little squabble between the two engineers and the racer. They're gonna fix and refurbish the car. There's gonna be a lot of like things that they probably should show or talk about, but they're just gonna skip over completely, just in the effort to get to the next scene, to get to the next moment, to get to the red line race. And then you're having the red line race, and there's so much shit exploding that there's no stakes. There's nothing like, there's not a single moment I'm like, out of the 50 million explosions that happened between the beginning and the end of the red line race, there wasn't a single moment where I was like fearful for anybody. It's like I couldn't even tell who was blowing up. I
No,
couldn't
you
tell who was
can't tell
getting
what's
attacked.
happening because there's
Yeah.
too many zoom ins. Like you'll see a car maybe getting close to another car, be like, oh, what's happening? And then all of a sudden it just zooms in on
Yeah, it
JP's
blows
face
right
for a
by
minute,
you.
and you're like, what just happened?
Or they'll
They're
do
like-
that, or worse yet, they'll back out so fucking far, and then they've got this tiny little minuscule car running
Yeah,
around on
you
this.
can never
and you're
tell
supposed to be
what's
like, what's that? Which car is that? Whose character is this? Like, you're supposed to be able to tell the characters by the vehicles, but half the times you can't even tell what the vehicle looks like.
Basically, just Phantom Menace. It's just a pod race.
No,
from
man, even
Phantom
the
Menace.
pod racing is makes more sense and is better than that. Like, they try to be a pod race. It's like pod racing, Death Race 2000, and Beautiful Joe, and it was a cacophony of crap. And this is the movie you get with Redline.
Which performance would you hold up? I would say probably his, what is it, his agent? Or his manager
Frisbee.
or whatever?
Frisbee is supposed to be
Yeah,
his engineer or whatever. I was actually gonna give it to Old Man Mole, the four-armed guy, because
Yeah,
he was
the
like
mechanic.
he was more like down to earth, and he was like, I'm not trying to fuck you, kid. This Frisbee guy is trying to fuck you, you know. And then he's like trying to look out for him, like, yeah. I would say him, and yeah, him. Maybe the two guys from that clip I showed earlier, whose names I can't even remember. You know,
Yeah, I'll throw in the
there's
kid
such a
who wanted
side.
the lens cap off the camera.
Yeah, you know, I don't know what happened with that audio. That's really weird. I don't know what happened there, but yeah.
You messed up all my clips tonight, Murphy. It's all right. I'm never watching any more animes ever again because of it. You had your chance.
Yeah.
All right. Now, setting aesthetic. Did you like the setting aesthetic, Murphy? You loved it, right?
No,
You loved
it.
it.
Was terrible. There's
Yeah,
not a
I thought you
single
loved
frame
it.
of this film made sense barely. Like, it was just, and like even the scene where she's at the restaurant and there's that like over creepy waiter that's like serving her and like hovering over her, and he like pantses them and stuff like that. Just the animations of him like moving his arm, where like the hand goes towards the camera like this, but he's way over there, and it's just like make it make sense. Have like lenses that fucking work, not some fucking like, look at me, look at my arms, like, it's just aggravating. It was an aggravating, stupid film. And if Moist Critical ever sees this, you fucking have terrible choice in anime, sir.
Oh, calling out, putting Moist Critical on blast.
Much like this
Throw
lacking
a couple
movie,
more morsels.
much like this lacking movie, Redline from 2009's movie morsels are lacking. In fact, I only have two. This is the shortest movie morsels I have for any of the films we've watched.
You mentioned
Using
by far the shortest episode of Hold Up, a movie podcast.
Yeah, we are actually going to be less than 2 hours, which is amazing.
Yeah, we're
Using
not by the
over
time the plugs are done.
100,000 handmade drawings, Redline spent 7 years in production before its final
Oh
release.
wow! So I
And
bet
you
you it
can
was different studios. You can tell, like they drew some in
there was
2003, and then drew some in 2009.
there was
Yeah,
even that one scene where they just like cut to this family sitting at a table eating food, seemingly watching Yellow Line or Red Line or whatever, and the
mm,
entire art style is completely different and janky and
yeah,
weird. And it just
yeah.
makes no sense as to why that art style's there for the 10 seconds it's there. Like
And I
it's
really noticed it is they did one of those super close-ups on JP, when his eyes are bulging and he's sweating and stuff. And then they cut away, and then they cut back to JP's close-up, and it's completely different.
yeah.
Like the art on JP's face is like definitely drawn by somebody else, and it was a bit distracting.
Now, the second and only other movie morsel I have for this film, which I thought was probably the funniest movie morsel.
Just got out of Spider-Verse, cousin Dave says. Where's Eamon? Eamon left us at about
Internet.
10-15 minutes in because it says his internet doesn't work.
Yeah, he couldn't get it to work, so he bailed on us. I don't know. Maybe he just pulled the plug and acted like, I don't know. Who knows? So yeah, the
No,
final.
that doesn't sound like Eamon.
So the final and second movie morsel.
Cousin Dave raised no Baylor.
Yeah. The final and second movie morsel for this film. The PlayStation game series Wipeout.
Oh, maybe he did.
Okay. The PlayStation game series Wipeout was a huge influence in the concept of the film, a game that was played in the film Hackers, 1995.
Sure was.
That's my movie. Cinematography by Ryu Takazawa, edited by Satoichi Tarochi, and Nuki Kawanishi. Music by James Shimoji. Release date August 14th, 2009. A running time of 102 minutes. A budget of 5.5 million. A box office of 8.2 million. That is fucking Redline. Glad it's over with.
Yep. I agree, cousin Dave. Internet issues are credible. All right. Yeah, that is Redline. That was indeed Redline. Rewatchability. How many times are you going to rewatch this movie this year alone, Murphy?
Never. I will never rewatch that movie ever again. I can't. It was eye vomit. Like pour vomit into my eyes. I'll have a better experience.
I love your distaste for this movie. It's funny.
I wanted to.
I'm
I
not
wanted
gonna
to like
rewatch
it.
either.
I could have picked a fucking plethora of anime films that would have done way better than this did. That are
This is getting a
supremely
B
better.
because Eamon liked it. This is getting
Oh
a B.
my god, it doesn't deserve a B. I feel like
It's getting a B.
I feel like his vote shouldn't count since he bailed so early. Let's put it way down on the D
Nope,
list.
he gets to keep his votes. That's the least we can do since he wasn't able to join us. So it gets his sway. Does it hold up? Does it hold up? No,
What do you think?
It does. No,
God,
it just
no.
got too trashy by the end of it. Too
It's
14-year-oldish.
one of the emptiest movies I've ever watched.
Yeah. Yeah, all right. Well, let's do our anime movie rankings.
There's I don't even think there's much question here. It's clearly Mononoke, Totoro, and Redline. Like Mononoke is the most well balanced.
Mononoke is number
Creative
one.
film.
I actually
Yeah.
may have enjoyed Redline more than Totoro. Totoro bored me to tears. I understand that it's kind of sweet and but it was so boring. Redline I enjoyed more. I'm gonna say Redline over Totoro.
You
I,
fucking
I
blew me
really
away.
didn't
I'm
enjoy
sorry.
Totoro very much. And for
I
the
mean-
first 20 minutes, I enjoyed Redline, which is more than I can say about Totoro.
My mild enjoyment of Totoro well surpasses my absolute disdain for Redline. So it
That's
holds
fair.
second place for me.
That's fair. I don't have quite the disdain.
I was so mad watching this film. I wanted to turn it off, and I was like, "What am I watching? What is happening?"
Where's
What is
Jaemeel? We
going
got
on?"
plenty of time for spare change.
Yeah, I know, right?
Jaemeel, where you at? Some spare change.
Oh,
Well,
we're so
until
desperate
then.
for guests.
Yeah. Yeah, really. We're like, come on, Jody. Come on, Jaemeel. Come on, Eamon. Cousin Dave's out of
Well,
Spider-Verse now, but he didn't watch these movies. All right.
ah,
Well, did you
man,
know?
I'm gonna try and see Spider-Verse so I can join you guys for that Mader cast if I can. We'll see.
Yeah, that'd be Friday. Spider-Verse was awesome. Spoiler it. So we are a member of a United Federation of Podcasts. Were you aware? Let me get this Redline banner off there and stop
A
offending you.
federation,
There you
you
go.
say?
A federation of podcasts, even. Where we have, of course, Hold Up a Movie podcast, the podcast you're probably listening to or watching right now.
We hope.
And our next episode will be on boats.
Sailing the high seas.
Guest is Kevin. Is it Kevin on this
I
one?
believe it's Kevin joining us.
Yes, Kevin. He picked. Yeah.
Das Boot.
Das Boot. And I
you
picked
got-
Captain
you got-
Ron.
And I
Just throwing a
picked-
loop at everybody.
Yeah, what film did I pick again? Something Seas of something.
In the Heart of the Sea or something like that.
Yeah, In the Heart of the Sea from
Yeah,
2015.
I wanted to see that movie, so I'm looking forward to watching all of these because I've been meaning to watch Das Boot as well, which I've seen pieces
yeah.
of on A&E back in the day. And Captain Ron I've probably seen 10 times, but I get a kick out of it.
I
did
remember
as a
Captain
kid
Ron.
anyway.
I saw Captain Ron more than anything a few times. Das Boot, I don't think I maybe watched that once with my grandfather, possibly, but I can't honestly say that for sure. And yeah, the Chris Hemsworth, Cillian Murphy sea film I haven't seen yet, so looks like it'll be a good one, something Moby Dickish.
Yep. And, we'll give him a plug even though he bailed early. Eamon on Track. Check out Eamon's podcast. Not his fault. On his podcast, his internet will always work. Let me tell you right now. Don't you worry about that. And check it out. He reviews albums. He brings on guests. They talk about albums. I was on there. We talked about Robert Johnson. I think I'm going to go on again. We're going to talk about Sata Masagana, an album by the Abyssinians, one of the great reggae albums. Check that out. And
Well, if he invites me
also
again,
check
I'll have to
out-
come out with another hitter.
Oh, there you go. X-Rated, the X-Men Animated Review Show. We just did an interview with Lawrence Bain, the voice of Cable. Coming up, it was supposed to be this week, but Andre couldn't make it, so it's now next week. Check out Cameo Fest 1996 on X-Rated, the X-Men Animated Review Show. And my co-host Andre has the Graphic Histories podcast, of course.
Who's doing a live show soon, apparently. So if you're able to attend that, you should definitely.
Oh,
do
right,
it.
right, from the Comic-Con or something like that. Yeah. That'll be lots going on there in that X-Rated and Graphic Histories, doing big things over there in the comics division. Super Mader Brothers podcast.
We are brothers!
Reality shows. They are brothers, except one of the brothers is rarely there, so it's more like cousins sometimes friends. Super Mader friends, but there's
Yeah, it should
usually
be
a
Super
Mader.
Mader Friends podcast.
Sometimes it's just Jaemeel and there are no Maders. But at the Mary Mader Marvel Society, we have a Mader. We have Dave. We also have myself and Jaemeel, and we'll be doing our Across the Spider-Verse review on Friday. Check your local listings. And also check your local listings for Trivial Debates. It'll be back. Not sure what the next one's going to be.
The next one's going to be an office theme one. We got Jason R. Phillips hosting that. I think we still need to score some guests, but yeah, it should be office themed.
Office, the Office, the TV show.
Yes.
I'll also check out the Hellbound podcast with Alex Blackwood and Michael Chan. They'll talk about scary things. And
Mostly their lives.
Of course, if you love mostly their lives. And if you love Star Trek, as we all do here in the United Federation of Podcasts, we've got a great crew of shows and people bringing you those shows. We've got Locutors of Trek, myself, Dave Puxley, sometimes Adam, sometimes Ashley. Sometimes people show up. And we also have the Command Division review Star Trek shows, episodes. Strange New Worlds is back tomorrow. We'll be reviewing that.
I can't wait. I've
man.
missed Captain
That
Pike.
show. Me too. He's just delightful, and that hair. And that was another
So
sweet pomp.
man's
That's how you wear a
ruggedly
pomp.
handsome. Great
Very,
cook.
yeah. Pasta Mama.
Pasta
Uh,
mama.
and also we do radio theater. In the science division, we have a lot of fun games. We do trivia. We do debates. We launch probes. You know, into all kinds of places.
Class L
And
probes.
yeah, Class L probes, and we learn things. You know, hopefully you do too. And of course, the computers object. But that's it. That's our entire federation. One big happy family.
It's good
Uh,
stuff.
yep. Any final words other than
Surprise, motherfucker.
I'm glad, honestly, I got to really bust wide open your anime cherry. Just spread that jam well across the timeline, so that you're fully versed in the world of anime. You can no longer say you haven't watched anime. You've watched some. You know what it's about now.
Medicine Man,
You can speak on it. It's about
the
medicine.
world
Yes.
famous anime Medicine Man?
Yeah. I'm glad I could,
Yeah. Well, I've
take
seen
you on that
animes
journey.
now.
You can
Yep.
see in animes
Fair
now.
enough.
And it won't be your last one. There will be more in the future, but, not as collective. It'll be
Debatable.
more
Debatable.
sprinkled. More sprinkled.
see.
Oh, I intend to make you watch Paprika, sir. Paprika is a fucking trip, and it's so good.
Okay.
Ah.
Paprika it is. I do love the spice. So
Paprika?
paprika.
Paprika? Yeah. So let's end this.
All right.
I want to thank you all for joining us on this wonderful podcast of Talking Movies. This is probably our shortest episode yet. I'm sure you're enjoying it. We had a good time. And as always, thank you for joining us and enjoy the movies.